those moments where, we came out better on the other side, that, in those moments where you get a little shaky, like, Lord, is this going to work this time? That's when, that gratefulness piece starts to kick in. You talked about like the moment where, it became easier for you, and, like, hey, when did you have Christ come into your life, and, you started to see things change. Like, growing up for me, I've always been in church.
I was thinking the same, like, so you may not know, you may not have seen that switch.
So that conversion experience, like that, Damascus Road experience isn't necessarily my story.
Yeah. Per
se.
Right.
Not saying that, I was saved coming out of the womb, because we know that's not the case. But we've been like, this is the family thing. Mm-hmm. This is what we do. And I think having that moment for you is something that I necessarily didn't have. Yeah. Like, here's the day. Like, I remember, being at the old church, and it's like, like you're giving your life to Christ, but it was already like, I was already ready down that road.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's been times in my life where I'm like, I've been in church my entire life.
Yeah.
Like, I've believed this my entire life, and I still have doubt. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. Like, hey, you know what? I'm not cheerful all the time.
Yeah.
Like, there's some times where I'm not happy. So, I must be doing this wrong.
No. So let's go back to your question, though. How I stuck a pin in something. I forgot what it was.
That's all right. There's pins all over the place.
So what are you doing? How are you going to do it? So I feel like, again, we're super transparent in these kind of conversations. I feel like you're struggling a little bit with your thankfulness and your cheerfulness. And you are not a cheerful, when you laugh, I love when you laugh, like, because you're so jovial and
right.
Like, I love it. And we don't get it often. So when we get it, we try to capture it. So how do we get you to that place where you can take all that anger and replace it with God's goodness?
Well, I think we not so much that we stumbled upon it. This is very intentional, because having this conversation is very cathartic for me. But I think, part of it is like,
why we talked about big words. Can't you just be like regular?
It's his fault. But I think part of it really is a matter of perspective, and it's a matter of, like, we talk about cultivating that environment where, for me, I can't be so closed off, and I also have to have a long memory. When I mean a long memory, I'm talking about, God, I remember when. We're like, you know what? You did this.
I remember.
But to remember his goodness and to remember his grace. Lord, you know what? I thank you for bringing me through. And I think I keep referencing this, but it's difficult. But I think the last couple of years have been huge for me in terms of personal growth.
Yes.
Like, just intentionally trying to be better, and intentionally making sure that my spiritual life is real, not just something you do on Sunday or Wednesday or month. Like I need it to be real. I need it to be ingrained in every ounce of my being, like interwoven in my DNA. And when that is in full effect, when that, like, it's easier for me to be thankful and grateful, because now I'm not having to work at it.
Of course.
Because it's there.
Of course.
Where I've been able to kind of, like, we talked about this before, like, let's put away the past hurts.
Yeah.
Let's put away, like, who did what.
Yeah.
Like, because that doesn't matter anymore. Like, I'm not dredging that up.
Right.
Like, I don't need to carry that burden.
Right.
Like, I'm in the moment. Like, Lord, it's funny. People call at work, like, hey, how you doing? I'm great.
Yeah.
Woke up on the right side of the dirt.
Right.
That's something very small that I'm incredibly grateful for, because not everybody got a chance to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Lord, it's people equate, being grateful and thankful with receiving blessings or receiving the effects of the blessing. And I think perspective has more to do with feeling grateful than the actual tangible, let me put my hand on it. Because you know what, Lord? You did save me from destruction.
Yeah.
You set me in a good place. I have air in my lungs. I have, like they said in the old church, the articulation of my limbs.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things, like, it's, I used to make fun of that being little, but I'm like, what are you so happy for? I'm like, I can move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I have another opportunity to give God praise.
That's we talk about like those little things. Like stop praising the big things. Stop thanking.
I mean, I'm thankful for the big things too.
Yeah, but I mean that's what
yeah.
Everybody's waiting for the big hit. Everybody's waiting for the car to drop.
Right, and that's why they have such a jaded perspective of what thankfulness and gratefulness is. Like I can only be grateful when I get the new job or the unexpected blessing show up. Maybe
but is that generation that we're raising?
I don't know if it's a generational thing, and that's a different, bigger conversation. All I can talk about is me. Like right now in this moment, you're right. I think oftentimes we're thinking about being grateful as only a byproduct of something good happening, as opposed to like, Lord, you put me in a good place.
Yeah.
Like it's always equated with, okay, something that's tangible in my hand. Like, oh, you get like, Lord, I prayed for money and I got it. And so I'm grateful and I'm thankful. Right. No, you should be grateful and thankful because you had the opportunity to wake up this morning. Like, Lord, you know what? I'm thankful that you sent your son down here to die for me, which is the ultimate prize out of all of this, because it's not a material thing. Gratefulness isn't about material blessing or tangible material things. Like I'm thankful for those things when they do arrive and they show up, but I'm more thankful for you. Like, God, I am grateful for all that you are, for all that you have, and for all that you've done. When that is, written on the tablets of your heart, then gratefulness and thanksgiving come easy. And as we change the paradigm here, as we shift to, Lord, it isn't about what you gave to me, but it's about you. Mm-hmm. That's where gratefulness and thanksgiving comes into play immediately.
So if we have some of the narcissistic attitudes and if we took that, and first of all, you have to admit that you're a narcissist. And if you took that and moved it and put all of that praise instead of on yourself onto the Lord, I think your perspective would change. Do you know your brain makes your eyes ignore your nose?
So what?
Your brain makes your eyes ignore your nose.
Because your nose is really there. Right. It's always there.
Right.
But you just often can't see it.
Exactly. So that's the same thing that we do with the Lord, right? So we sometimes forget
that the nose is there.
That the nose is there. Right. And we're not, we know it is there. Sorry.
Is that, it's like Neo in the Matrix, there is no spoon?
Right. I don't know what that reference is. I really have never seen that movie.
Got it.
I got no idea. But yeah, like it's like the Lord's always there, and we forget to say thank you, but we see it, right? Like we know, obviously, but we just ignore it.
So I mean, that's profound.
You looked at me like, what?
No, like it's well, I mean, you said it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I do remember that. One of the questions I have written down here is, does being grateful detach you from the real world? Like oftentimes, some folks are like, just fake it until you make it. Or, the what's the word I'm looking for? The sort of satirical view of Christians that are happy-go-lucky, bubbly. All right, I'll give you an example.
Satirical?
Everybody knows Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
So he's the quintessential caricature of what a God-fearing person is, like Oakley Dokley, and you're just happy-go-lucky, and you're kind of aloof and dim-witted, and sometimes you just don't see the world for what it is. Yeah. Is that accurate? Like, does being grateful and thankful for everything that comes your way detach you from the real world, or have you cracked the code into what real happiness looks like? Which one is it? What do you think? Big sigh.
I know.
I may have stumped her. Let's see.
So I know nothing, but I'm going to be real, right? So I believe that the short answer, I would still be happy if I didn't know the Lord the way I know him. Right? I would still be this. You
would be happy because.
Happy's a feeling.
A relative term.
Right. I would be happy. But I'm more in touch with those feelings because of the Lord. And I'm not, what was your question? I'm not taking away the view of the world. I believe I know what's going on out there.
You're not detached from reality.
Yeah, I'm not detached from reality. But I'm not going to let that move me.
So now, in this moment, when unhappy things happen, you have a better solution. You have a better salve.
My last thought would be to self-medicate. It's like, because I'm conscious of it now, right? So I know if I'm having a bad day, like I shouldn't go for the wine. Right. And it's like, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't go for the hokey, right? I should make better choices. And I've done that. Right. And that's,
had a rough day at work. Give me a bucket of wings.
But seriously, like think about no. Think about that. Like think about it. Like how often like we joked earlier. Listen. We joked earlier. You came home and you're like, as I'm cooking dinner, you ate an entire meal while I'm cooking dinner.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's self-medicating.
Or I could have just been extremely hungry.
No, because after you ate, you were fine.
Right. No. I was extremely hungry.
No. It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. And then you didn't want the slop that I put in front of you.
Oh, I didn't say that. Stop.
Oh, why you gotta cook me this?
Stop. You're going to get in trouble with my mother now calling your food slop. She's going to come and fight me.
Yeah, I didn't say self-medicate. So I think, like, first of all, I totally lost what your question was. Am I detached from reality? Absolutely not.
Right.
Do I make better choices now? Yes. Do I have a cheerful heart? Yes. Do I make these things? Do people think I'm a little nuts? Yes. I also have bad days.
Yeah.
Right. And this is funny. One bad hour doesn't make a bad day, and one bad day doesn't make a bad week.
Sure.
Right. So I have to be aware of that. And the more I'm aware of that, the more time I can pause, world. Let me be thankful out loud so someone hears me, Lord, and then let me come back to what I'm doing, and my perspective changes. How many times do we tell our children, if you're in a bad situation, move away from it. Take yourself out. Go someplace else. Don't argue, don't fight, don't do all that stupid stuff. Move yourself out of it. It's the same scenario that we're in, like as adults. You have a bad phone call, you get bad news. What's the first thing you do? Oh my goodness, I can't believe I got the bad call from the doctor. My lung is going to explode in 2 days. Like, what am I going to do? Like
the old exploding lungs syndrome.
That happens. But instead, like, you handle it differently when okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the information. I need to go pray about this.
Yeah.
Right. And whatever your outcome is, like you're more in tune to those things, and you can consciously make an effort to change your mindset. And I know these things sound stupid. I feel like, what was that movie, Girls Trip, where the one girl was, she was like a public speaker and she spoke,
I have no idea.
Whatever. But really, like, your words, how many times do we say this? Like, your words have so much weight and so much value. Like, you can't just put stuff on yourself. And if these things are not making you happy, like, that's not what you're thankful for. Change your situation, remove yourself from it, praise God for the things and the ability to go and be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it. Just about shifting your perspective and recognizing, like, Lord, I'm going to need your help in this situation. And regardless of what's happening, I'm still going to be thankful. Colossians 3, and in your notes, and I'm sorry, I have 15 through 17, but I actually want to back this up a little bit. This is the Good News Translation, your favorite one that I stuck in there. High five. So I'll read this real fast. It says, "You are the people of God. He loved you and chose you for his own." So that's good news.
Great.
Like, hey, he handpicked me. That's something to kind of feel grateful about. So then you must clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Be tolerant with one another and forgive one another whenever any of you has a complaint against someone else. You must forgive one another just as the Lord has forgiven you. And to all these qualities add love, which binds all things together in perfect unity. The peace that Christ gives is to guide you in the decisions that you make. For it is this peace that God has called you together in one body. And be thankful. Christ's message and all of its richness must live in your hearts. Teach and instruct one another with all wisdom. Sing psalms, hymns, and sacred songs. Sing to God with thanksgiveness. Where? In your hearts. I like that.
So we talked earlier, right? The abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Like if you got hurt in your heart, you're going to talk hurt out. That's not good.
And we have to replace it.
Right.
Replace it with what? The peace of God.
Yes. And you replace it with the love. And then when you start having that peace within yourself, it is nothing but contagious.
The funny thing here, and I'll finish with verse 17, it says, everything you do or say then should be done in the name of the Lord Jesus, as you give thanks through him to God the Father. Ultimately, for me, the answer for me to how do I cultivate a heart or an environment of thankfulness and gratefulness is to make sure that I'm cultivating it not in my lips, not in my head, because to be thankful doesn't require my head, my mouth. It requires my heart.
Right.
And I think for us as believers, and I know all of the folks watching have probably got this under control, are probably perfect in their thanksgiving and in their gratefulness. But for some of us slackers, this is something that we have to hold on to deeply. Like, Lord, I'm grateful, not because I'm saying it out of my mouth, but because I'm actually saying it with my heart.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make sure that my gratefulness, like my thanksgiving and all of these things, live in the seat of importance, which is my heart. Like, it's one thing for it to be in my lips, it's one thing for it to be in my mind, but living deep inside my heart is how I'm going to continue to create that environment of thankfulness, of thanksgiving, of gratefulness. Because, Lord, you know what? You didn't have to do it, but you did.
Yeah. We have to be aware, I think. We need to, I think everybody, like, people are watching, like, all the time. Like, people are watching, little people are watching, and even not our own children, but other people's children. And if they see us, you, me, if they see me treat you some kind of way that doesn't look right, they may think, oh, well, she did it, then I should be able to do it. Not that I have that much of effect, but you know what I mean? So if I'm nothing but nice to you all the time, and I can't just be nice in public, like I got to be nice to you all the time, that's what people are going to pick on. If we practice being nice to each other behind doors, when we're out, that's all we're going to know. Like, sure. I can be nasty. I know. And usually because I'm tired. Usually because I'm tired.
What?
And that's what I knew, like the other night when I went and lay down, like I knew. Like,
guys, mom's on timeout.
But if we continue to do that and we show that example, people will follow. Like, we're leaders. Like, we're leaders, if not in our own house, like out there. Like,
well, in your house, wherever you go.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
and you want to be the example.
Right. And you don't even have to have the title of leader to be a leader.
Right.
And I think when we like my last question I have here is, how do we make this contagious? Is by doing this repeatedly.
Absolutely.
How do we make gratefulness contagious?
And you can't sway. You can't be happy and joyful and thankful one day and a tyrant the next.
You can't.
You can't.
I mean, it does happen.
but
it
you
shouldn't.
Can't. I said you can't.
You can't be a tyrant, Dave.
Like we can't. We really can't. And look, I'm guilty of it. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not.
What?
Stop it.
What? You?
How do you?
I think you are. Yeah. How do you get the side?
Wait, I just rolled my eyes. Wait. Yeah, you can't. Like, I'm not perfect, and I have those days, and sometimes they're strung together. And I do apologize. Damage is already done, though.
Yeah, it's out there, and I think, I think
I know how to ask for forgiveness, though.
Exactly. I mean, there's not a situation that you can find yourself in that you can't come back from.
Yeah.
And I think we have to. We talked about being intentional before, but I think this right here, this lesson about being grateful and having that heart of thanksgiving helps shape behavior, helps shape mindset, helps shape your belief system, helps shape how you receive and hear from God also. Because if you have a heart of thanksgiving, if you have a heart of gratefulness, you're constantly giving praise unto God.
Yep.
And when you do that, that's when everything comes out straight.
I agree.
I think let's see. Let me see if I can find this real fast. Just make sure that we're going to end on a good note here.
We just have one close today, or are we going to give you several?
it's still up for grabs right now. And I think this right here, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4 and 5, really talks about removing obstructions, removing obstacles that would keep us from receiving all that God has and having a heart of gratefulness and a heart of thanksgiving. We have to make sure that we don't falter in our mindset. We have to make sure that we are consistent in our practice of his presence. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4 and 5 in the Good News says, the weapons we use in our fight are not the world's weapons, but God's powerful weapons, which we use to destroy strongholds. We destroy false arguments. We pull down every proud obstacle that is raised against the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive and make it obey Christ. And after you've proved your complete loyalty, you'll be ready to punish any act of disloyalty. We can talk about that for days and days and days. But ultimately here, what we're talking about is, you said being cognizant of how to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, you said a bad hour doesn't make a bad day. One bad day doesn't make a bad week. One bad week doesn't make a bad month. Lord, I am going to continually practice being grateful to you. Yeah. When we were studying for this, it says true gratefulness is being grateful to God if you've never received a single thing from him ever again. Lord, if I never got another thing from you, I am still grateful for what you've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that shows that your relationship is right.
Right.
And it's not as believers, we're not leeches.
Yeah.
We're not parasites.
Right.
When you don't look at it that way, then gratefulness is easy. So what I'm talking about for me personally is that I had to shift my perspective, and my relationship with God had to get into the right spot where, he's not an ATM. Yeah. He's not Santa Claus with a wish list. He's not any of those things. I am not a parasite. I am not a leech. This is a partnership.
Yeah.
He's Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
I am follower, believer. He's Father, I'm Son.
Yeah.
I'm your child here, and let's make sure that that's the relationship that we have, as opposed to, Lord, give me.
Yeah.
Because if my gratefulness of my thanksgiving is predicated on receiving from God, then that's not really a relationship. That's not being grateful.
Right.
That's me being an opportunist.
Yeah. I am out loud extremely proud of you.
Oh, thanks. Proud of you too.
Thanks. You these things are hard to admit. You asked, we did one, previously about communication.
Yeah.
And I knew my communication with the Lord was suffering. So with you, it was suffering. And I knew it, and I was aware of it. So I had to make sure that we spoke about that. And I think this is it's hard to admit flaws sometimes. And I don't know if you're admitting that you were flawed here, but the fact that you're open to talk about stuff like this, it's good. It shows growth.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. That makes you feel good about myself. Thank you for
That's
recognizing
so
that.
much for your face.
No. Well, this is my face. This is just my face. But I think that ultimately, you and I, believers in general, we can't afford this false narrative of what it's like to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Or what it's like to be a believer. At some point in time, believers now are literally under assault and under attack for the things that you believe. And sometimes it's difficult. And sometimes folks want to hide, and sometimes people don't want to own up to it. But the only way you get there is by being open and honest and transparent. And there's here's the thing. Our lives are far from perfect.
Right. But
they are far from imperfect too.
Yeah.
And I think that having this conversation about, there are times where I struggle with loving people. Yeah. You know this. Yeah. There are times where I struggle with being kind. Yeah. That is not a shocker. But having those conversations, it's okay for me to feel that way.
Talk it out loud. It's
sure.
That, of course.
Because here's the thing, it doesn't show growth. Listen, trust me, this message could have gone completely different. And I could have crafted this in such a way where it looks like you're perfect.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes much more sense, to show we're just regular people. Mm-hmm. And just like you struggle, we struggle.
Yeah.
But here's a good thing though. We have a way out.
We do.
Don't wallow in the struggle.
Right.
Rejoice in the victory.
We'd like to thank you for joining us in our service on today. And before we leave, we like to give you the opportunity to accept Jesus as your Savior. It is as simple as A, B, C. I accept God and I acknowledge the sins in my life. I believe that Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and I commit my life to you. If you said that simple prayer, we believe that you've been born again. Welcome to the family.